is here. And so if you have your papers there, just don't ruffle them.
Yes.
Okay, introduction, go for it.
My name is Denise Paxton, and I teach 5th grade at Lena Juniper Elementary School in Sparks, Nevada.
We want to understand the decisions you made in planning for this lesson and how it fits into the unit and year. How does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge, what was taught before the lesson, and what will come after it?
This lesson had to do with incorporating fractions and using data to create those fractions. And we've been working since the beginning of the year, understanding what a whole is. We've worked on what a fraction is, the concepts of fractions, then learning how to add fractions, subtract fractions, mixed numbers, create mixed numbers, and then also how to convert fractions from fractions to decimals to percents, and then improper fractions to mixed numbers. We will continue throughout the rest of the year, again incorporating our use of fractions with math in the different math concepts that we'll be working with then multiplying fractions, finding area, finding volume, and I guess that's it.
Do you want to stop there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, not a problem. Everything's edited.
Kind of lost my train of thought there.
Okay, so we'll go to the next question is, talk about the standards or cluster targeted in the lesson. What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of that standard or cluster?
The Common Core State Standards for 5th grade has a cluster for fractions. And this lesson really focused on the use of fractions. So fractions as part of a whole, adding fractions with uncommon denominators, and then converting those fractions into, if needed, a mixed number. It's a little bit of a stretch, but data is one of the standards for 5th grade as well. We incorporated the data using a tally table, and then converted that data into numbers and then into fractions.
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified, and how did you plan for this?
I believe the lesson really hits all 3 of the core action indicators. The fractions is within the grade level cluster, it's grade level content. The students are using prior knowledge of fractions from earlier lessons, as well as incorporating prior knowledge of data and data collection. For core action 2, start again.
You want to start from core action 2?
Yes.
Okay.
For core action 2, I developed high quality of questions. I made sure that I incorporated Tier 2 academic vocabulary as well as Tier 3 content vocabulary. The students were able to use a variety of strategies, and there were multiple solutions in the fact that the fractions could have been just the fraction, or in simplest terms, reduced fraction or a mixed number. And then of course, we incorporated small group as well as whole class discussion. For core action 3, the students were engaged through the discussions of small group and whole class. I gave them multiple tools to use and multiple strategies.
We're interested in how the shifts required by the CCSS are being incorporated into your classroom. Discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
For the shifts for the category of focus, the students they have a solid conceptual understanding of the fractions. They had to also develop the skill and a fluency on working with those fractions. We began the lesson with 2 basic fraction computation questions, which then bridged into a story problem where they then had to apply let me start that one again, sorry.
Okay.
I'll just start with
Do you want to take it
shifts
from the
and
top?
the focus. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So
Sorry.
discuss how the lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
So for the category of focus within the shift, the lesson had the students gained a solid conceptual understanding of fractions, as well as developed a skill through a strategy and fluency with those fractions. We began with two basic computation problems for fractions, one with common denominators and the second one with uncommon denominators. We then moved that into a story problem where they had to incorporate their knowledge of adding fractions with uncommon denominators. And that was bridged into a real world problem solving where students needed to collect data and then convert the data into fractions and report them in their simplest form. For the coherence shift, when I developed the lesson, I sat down with a third grade teacher and we really talked about what he does as a third grade teacher to build that foundation with his students with fractions, and then how I was then going to take that and build upon what he does as a third grade teacher as they move to fourth and then me to fifth. I also, the sixth grade standards, the students are using fractions throughout the year with sixth grade, with our sixth grade curriculum. And so again, them having that strong foundation of what a fraction is, how to add and subtract fractions and convert fractions will help them be able to build upon it in sixth grade. For the rigor, do you want rigor?
This is just the shifts.
Okay, that's just the shift. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So the second one under the shifts question is, how did you teach the content of this lesson prior to the CCSS? What is the same and what is different?
I have, prior to Common Core State Standards, I have always had a philosophy that when we teach a concept to students, we need to break it down into the concrete level. Making sure that they understand the concept of the math, not just how to solve the math. The Common Core State Standards has actually helped me kind of streamline what already went along with my teaching, my philosophy of teaching. And it's just kind of given me a little bit of a guidance and more and a road to travel down to make sure that my students have what they need to go on to the next grade level. And it's also, I didn't have a full understanding of what real world meant prior to Common Core State Standards. I always thought it was just a story problem on a worksheet. And, you know, a story problem about how many buses should we order. And Common Core State Standards has allowed me to understand that real world means real world for the age group that I'm working with. So asking a student to solve a problem about how many school buses will be ordered isn't applicable to them in their life. And so Common Core State Standards has allowed me, and it's very difficult, and we need to kind of go to our students to find what is applicable to them in their life. To be able to create, and they really have to be teacher created for that specific age group of students and the specific students that you have each year in your class, because what interests your students this year, your class next year may have completely different interests.
Student engagement is crucial to the work of the CCSS, and we want to understand how you ensure that all students had the opportunity to productively engage in the work of a lesson. How did the students handle this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics?
My students, we began the lesson with a review of how to add fractions with uncommon denominators. I needed to ensure that before I sent my students to the math task that they had the foundational skills needed to be successful in the task. Once they went to the math task, I gave them multiple tools, circle fractions as well as fraction sticks, as well as a large fraction circle that for them to be able to use for whatever strategy they chose to be successful. Also, today's lesson, they worked in their groups, in their small groups, so students had the support of other students within their small group, as well as the sharing of how other students think about math with a whole class discussion.
Explain how you differentiated in the lesson. Did all students have the opportunity to work on grade level content? If all students did not have the opportunity, explain why.
The use of multiple tools and multiple strategies allows, that itself allows for differentiation. And I didn't say you are a student working below grade level, so you need to use fraction circles, or you are a GT student, so you must use the algorithm. I allowed the students to choose what they felt was necessary for them to be successful with the math task. During the lesson, one of the tables, I was trying to help them understand what reducing the fraction meant, what that meant for them, for the work that they needed to do. And I used the large pie plate with the 8 fractions, and theirs was 2/8, and so they needed to reduce it to the lowest terms. And so we put 2/8 on the pie, and I asked them, well, how else could we name that fraction? And they said, well, 1/8. And so then we put 1/8 on there, and then we put 2/8 on there, and I asked them, are they the same? And they said no. And one of my special ed students, she pulled out one of her fraction circles from the earlier part of this lesson, and she said, it's 1/4. And so that came from a special education student, was able to pull one of her tools from an earlier part of the lesson and answer the question for her group. And in her group, there was a GT student. So that I was really excited that she was able to remember, hey, I had that. I remember seeing that fraction, and she was able to pull that tool. So we need to be careful as teachers that we allow students to choose the differentiation instead of us giving them the adjusted lesson, because sometimes they don't need that.
Which behaviors from core action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson?
The lesson, like I said, incorporated multiple strategies, whole group as well as, or small group as well as whole class discussion. We use accountable talk as much as we can during our discussions, because that allows for respectful discussions to occur in the classroom, and we're able to listen to each other's ideas. Sometimes when my students feel pretty confident, they will skip the discussion piece and jump right into, I'll just answer all the questions. And in the lesson, there was one group that had done that, and so I had to go back and ask them, okay, so what did you share and why? Constantly having them refer back to their reasoning, their thinking about their thinking.
Reflecting on the lesson, what worked particularly well and what might you do differently? Well, time is always an issue. The lesson that we filmed today was actually a second part of a lesson we had started prior and didn't finish, and we still didn't get to the end result today. So again, just time, being able to separate out a long lesson. And a math task really does take 3 to 4 days. It's difficult to put it into one time period. So looking at that and making sure that I don't force it, and I let the students work at the pace necessary for them to complete the task successfully. So what we didn't get to today was, compiling the total number of pizzas that we needed as a class, and then what are we going to do with the remainder? So that was the next step, is to compile the total number of pizzas as a class and then figure out what to do with the remainders and have the students problem solve. Well, do we just ignore the remainder? What happens then? So what are we going to do with that remainder? I think also next time I might laminate the large fraction pieces for the middle pie and give them vis-a-vis markers that if they want to, they can mark on and draw
They marked on their small circles, and they used the large pizza circles during the group discussions, but none of them marked on it. And so I'm wondering if I gave them that as an option for those that are visual learners and need to see that slice is a pepperoni and the other slice is a cheese, if that might be a tool that they would incorporate into their small group discussion. Also on the fraction circles, I was thinking that for the next step, instead of right now they're cut into eighths with fourths kind of bolded, and so again giving them a fraction circle without any fraction pieces on it, just a circle itself, and have them determine how to use that as a tool to solve the fraction problem.
You are done. Thank you.